Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Bird, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. Roger, exciting show we have planned today. Currently going on as we speak is the Bridgestone HBCU Invitational. Doug Smith, who was broadcasting that event, he was the first black golfer in the history of the Louisville program, will be joining us as well. But what are your thoughts? How have strides been made? Certainly, there was an expectation from Tiger Woods that he would change the amount of minorities, particular African Americans, that we saw on the PGA Tour. There are some. It certainly is not many. Is what we're doing to make the game of golf more diverse? Is it working?
Great question, Ryan. And I think, yeah, are there strides? Certainly there are strides being made. I think a few things that have happened over the last few years to make accessible golf tournaments more accessible tournaments for players, minority players or underserved communities. So I think, yeah, we're making strides. Are we making strides? I think big enough? Not really. I mean, obviously the evidence, the proof is in the pudding that we don't have more minority black golfers on any of the major tours out there, right? I mean, it was great to see recently with Tim O'Neill, who just won on the senior tour. So that's fun to see. I mean, he's had such a good career and now finally breaking through on the senior tour. I think that's a credit to his perseverance throughout the years. But I think, you've got the advent of the Stephen Curry underrated tour, who's doing some good things there to provide opportunities for tournaments. I think you've got Will Lowry, who is Beyond Fairways, who's I think partners with Doug in their Beyond podcast, who's got an AJGA event, who does it differently, who brings in more minorities. But in fact, I think it's great that we're offering a lot of tournaments out there for players to play in. But I think what happens between those events, I think, is a miss. I think, kids getting accessible coaching, getting accessible knowledge about, the physical side of things, the mental health, what we would call the 5 elements of success. I think there's a lot still missing, and so it'd be great to hear from Doug and his perspective and see what he thinks. But I think there are strides, and I think we've seen it. But at the same time, I believe there's a lot more that can be done to really help with the development of younger players who then will go on to play at the college level. Because right now, you still got less than 1% of all college golfers are, minorities. Yeah, so I think that's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed big time.
Well, as we said, the Bridgestone Invitational currently going on in Georgia. Doug Smith, one of the announcers, and Doug joins us now. Doug, your resume is pretty incredible. First African-American to play at Louisville, went on to be the medalist at PGA Works. Incredible broadcasting career now. Roger and I started the Hub of Junior Golf podcast today, Doug, with the question of, is everything that the sport of golf is doing to become more diverse, to be more inclusive? This is a loaded question for you, Doug, but is it working?
Is it working? The short answer is yes. I'd say that we're seeing a lot more students from HBCUs, lower socioeconomic backgrounds, not just black, but all over kind of the income spectrum, actually have a greater access to the game. Like I said, I'm here at the Bridgestone event. Like when I was in college, played at Louisville, played at Florida A&M. We only had what then was the National Minority Collegiate Championship, now called the PGA Works Collegiate Championship. That was the only time where we really got to show what we could do to the nation. And now, and I'm not trying to be cliche and talk about Bridgestone because they're here, but Bridgestone actually has a concerted effort to make sure that they're doing what the hell they say they're going to do within the game of golf. And I think you go back to the late 90s into the 2000s, there was a lot of talk. There's a lot of people that didn't know what to do as it relates to bringing golf, because you had a bunch of old kind of white guys knowing they needed to do something. And the cool part for people on the other side of that is, by them just doing something, it mattered and had an impact. It was the butterfly effect back in the 90s, and now we're kind of seeing it. Am I jealous about the change that we've seen. Absolutely. I wish I had freaking Bridgestone Invitational. I wish I played on Golf Channel and college tournaments, etc. But I think the biggest one of the biggest impacts I've seen is just it's not the people playing the game. There's way more people welcoming people from outside staff, head pros, GMs. There's a lot more diversity in those parts of the game. And now those people are charged with the task of doing what the hell the industry said they were going to do with as it relates to growing the game. So yes, long way to say there has been change. But look, when you go from 1 to 2, you can say that we increased by 50%, right? So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But there is change, and it you can feel it. It's slow, but it's not the same atmosphere that it used to be.
Yeah, Doug, with that being said, again, welcome. And it's great that what's going on out there. And I think as Ryan and I were just talking about is, it's one thing to create events for players to play in. It's another for what do you do in between the events to continue that player development aspect of it, right? And I think that's where, my background is really more in the player development side of things. And I see it as, what are we doing to actually help with between the events, right? But and accessible coaching, accessible opportunities to work on the mental game, accessible things to do. I think that's what I know has been a big mission of ours at the Golf Performance Center is to provide more opportunities for kids from underserved communities, right? So I think that's something that tends to not get talked about a lot in the public view. I think we talk about tournaments, but we don't talk about really the development of those people enough. What's your thoughts on that?
It's tough, and I was extremely fortunate when I was playing golf and turned pro. I had a Scott Hamilton that basically brought me into the fold. He knew I couldn't afford him, but he saw something in this little kid from Kentucky. So he actually more so donated his time, and I'm extremely and forever grateful to Scott. But that was at the high end, right? The top of the triangle, if you will, when we're talking about developing players. Yesterday I had a chance to just kind of hit balls at a local kind of area course here in Atlanta. Forgive me for the moment, I forget the name of the course, but Jeff Donovan is the GM over there. He and his father, his first black father-son PGA professional duo. And I get to this course, and it's in the middle of what most people would consider the hood. I thought it was great. I'm on the range, 100 all black people on the range. The course, 9-hole golf course, great shape. But the point I'm making is I also think that between events, between tournaments, we also have to pay attention to where their access points to make sure that place is at a certain level so that we're filling that bottom of the triangle, that pipeline in so that we can't answer that question, Roger. I think it's a tough question to answer. You just got to have some people that care. And luckily for me, growing up in Kentucky, I had a lot of people around me. I grew up at a driving range in Lexington, Kentucky called Man of War. And I worked there doing club repair to hit balls. So I got to learn the industry and practice between events. And I had a lot of people look out for me. But, I think every city's different. What the answer for Ryan might be a different answer for you in that regard.
We are the Hub of Junior Golf podcast, really focused on helping prepare junior golf families as they take on the venture of junior golf with the hope of playing collegiate and then maybe professional. I guess my question would be this, Doug. If we're talking about 5 to 12 years old of when people that ultimately become collegiate players come into the game of golf. I understand that you have your stories of players that are 14, 15 that are just freaks that are able to pick it up that late. But we all understand, and everyone on this podcast understands, the amount of time and work, the 10,000 hours, so to speak, to be able to play junior golf, to be able to be good enough. Is part of the problem, Doug, when a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old does turn the PGA Tour on, that comes from the background we're discussing, that they don't see someone like themselves, and maybe that's why they don't pursue it at a greater level?
Yeah, I think that's part of the overall equation. I mean, when I turned the TV on when I was a kid, Tiger Woods wasn't there yet, so how did I get here, right? So I have a hard time saying that. But in the same regard, I also have the Jim Thorpes, the dents that were around in the lore of those. There's more black golfers on the PGA Tour in 1978 than there were in 2000, whenever.
Crazy.
Let's just be
Yeah.
honest, 2000,
Yeah.
whenever. But I also think we're also in an era where there's so many more outlets for your time. You know what I'm saying? And golf is shit. It takes all day to play golf, guys. It takes all day to practice. And I don't know if
Yeah.
this generation of kids, regardless of color or creed, I don't think they have, what it takes to sit out there and hit balls, because we live in I call it the Amazon society. You get everything in 2 days. So you go out and try to play golf, the ball still rolled on the ground after 2 days, 2 weeks, hell, in some cases 2 years, is going to run people out. There's the society that we live in doesn't have that same grind, in my opinion, that we used to see. Now, is it part of, if you don't see it, you can't be it? That was kind of my attitude. I didn't see it, so I was like, I'm gonna go bust ass, and I'm gonna turn out and be wherever I go. That was kind of my mentality. I was the only black guy, but I learned at a young age, like, even though it was just me, I also have to do a good job of representing what could come, or who I was and my family, etc. But Ryan, is it frustrating if I'm a young guy, am I frustrated that there's no Tiger Woods? Look, we were spoiled. Let's just be honest. I mean, the golf industry was absolutely spoiled by Tiger Woods. And there was an influx of people in, 97 to 2000 that came into the game that weren't stewarded correctly and fell out. I think, COVID was the same as the Tiger effect. So the question then becomes, what are we doing and what have we done to sustain the growth that we saw? The biggest sector of growth through COVID was black girls 8 to 12 in the game of golf. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. That was the biggest sector of people that came into the game. So what have we done there? I don't know, but rounds are up all over the country. So look, golf is good. I think a lot of people are just going to have to care about their fellow golfer and figure out ways, Ryan, where it might be the announcers' jobs to not make golf boring anymore. Like, it's on me and you, Ryan, to make golf dope, to make it entertaining, infotaining, if you will. It's not a one thing. I think it's a collective of things.
Doug, I think that's well said, by the way. I know Will Lowry has a AJGA event.
Oh, yeah,
which
he's
is
right,
amazing.
he's right over there right now.
Good. So, well, tell him I still have I still have a challenge for him. He said he was going to beat Nota Begay's PDI score. So I throw this challenge out. So just remind him that we got a challenge out for PDI score, and I'll throw that out to you because Nota says, hey, you guys can't beat it. So we'll see.
Man, you tell no to anywhere, anytime. For me,
Yeah,
I'd love to humble him. Tell him he's got me by 12 years, so I still got age on my side.
there you go. So I was actually just talking with Montrell Wells with the APGA Tour and the player development, and we had a great conversation regarding again the access points, as you said, the access points for kids getting development, and it's great that what the APGA Tour is doing is getting more kids who are, I say, young men, opportunity at that level. But again, back down to how do we get kids more access? And I think one of the things you just said about the grind, and he brought it up yesterday, which was there are a lot of guys out on the APGA Tour. I'm sure you played. There's guys who have played. It's hard. It's really hard. It's not a lot of money. But what do you do about, like, I know they're trying to perpetuate this player mentality, right? They want to get more players to the PGA Tour, but the reality is that it's just not enough money. It's really hard. They don't have I think the bridge to development. Is there an answer to that, or is it just time? Is it, do we do more with the HBCUs? What is it that you do to kind of create more players to play at that level?
I look again. I think of everything in triangles, man. As weird as it is. So you have, the bottom layer, the middle layer. There's going to be attrition as players move up. That's just going to happen. Same with, people's. You going to college. There's going to be some that fall out of college after 2-3 years, or some going to graduate with a master's or a doctorate, and then there's some that's just going to have their associate's degree. So when I look at what can be done, it's not an easy question. I would actually reverse that question, like from your seat and Ryan's seat, guys that have been around the game in different industries. What do you see? Like, I feel like more people haven't been brought in to facilitate the bottom. I feel like a lot of energy. I think too much this is going to be pissing people off. I think too much emphasis is given to the first tee to grow the game. Do not
Uh,
challenge the first tee to grow the game. They're not going to do it. They will not do
yeah,
it. I am not the biggest fan of the first tee. I'll say that publicly. I don't care. I think the first
yeah,
tee has pushed more kids out of the game of golf than it's brought in or retained. So I think the first thing we got to do is stop using the first tee as this entry point to golf. I think first tee started in '97, and yes, check presentations and the politics behind it are great. A lot of people think it's the official foundation of the PGA Tour, which is absolutely asinine. So a lot of people will not fund the first tee, or they'll fund the first tee thinking they're supporting the PGA Tour where they're not actually supporting. I mean, look, they're not supporting these kids that's out here playing golf. These aren't first tee kids. Some of them may have started there and hung on, but these aren't first tee kids. And I don't think we can put that pressure on the first tee to be what it's not. I don't know if you've seen the mission of the first tee in the last 5 years. They changed it. It's not even about golf. It's about teaching kids healthy habits through golf.
yeah,
So it's like, I told, and here comes Olajuwon Ojanaku up from Eastside Golf. He's walking up beside me. I told people a long time ago, let's make the 18th green, as a foundation. The hell with the first tee. What about the 18th green? Let's get them there, right? You got them to the first tee. Kudos, yay. All right, what are we gonna do to get them through? And so I just feel like, when I look at Olajuwon walking up here right now, it's exciting because Olajuwon, he did come up through a first tee program, but guess what? I don't think he thought it was enough for him to make it to where he wanted to go. So he did more and more. So, Olajuwon Joniku, everybody. And look at what he's been able to do with Eastside Golf. And now what's beautiful about Olajuwon is the fact that he now has a seat at the table, Ryan, and you know what that's like, where he can say things that these execs may or may not have heard. Because no offense, y'all wouldn't have came to where I practiced yesterday. You wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't have done it. You remember East Lake area, how it was before it was converted?
oh yeah,
Not a lot of people go there to play golf. I did, and I was comfortable as hell. But it's going to take people like me to go into these areas. Roger Steele's, the Will Lowrys, the Ryan Burrs, Note of Gaze. You look at Nota's stuff. Sorry to wax poetically here, but you look at Nota's stuff. Nota ain't no damn first tee. Nota's like, I'm doing this for me, my community. And I just think we golf put too much onus on the first tee to grow the game. It pisses me off personally. Sorry. I'm angry.
No, hey, listen, Doug, I'm right there with you. I worked
so
with
mad.
Them for a long time. It's a shame of what responsibility they've been given, which is the wrong responsibility.
And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Honestly,
it's not their fault, right? I 100% agree with that. I think there was just the society kind of roped them into that, and they kind of wrote it out. And unfortunately, for guys who really are in the know, just know that it's not the right thing.
The first tee has essentially gotten out of the golf business. I mean, that's
like the first
last couple
like
things we'll let you go.
There
was a time where there was not a black quarterback in the NFL. Now you're looking at 70%. Is this just a time thing? Is this just as there's more and more money? Like as we always say, follow the money. Follow the money. For all the parents of girls, there are more golf scholarship, easily attained golf scholarship, playing a sport that women actually get paid at compared to a lot of the other sports that girls play, where there is no revenue stream at the end of it. I mean, it basically just comes to an end in college unless you can make the Olympic team or whatever. But is it just that we just have to understand that it doesn't happen in a year or 2 years or 3 years, that it is a 25-year-old process?
What happens to this effort if there's no KPIs associated with it? Golf says, hey, this is how we look. We're going to do something about it. And then they do something and do something, and shit doesn't work. Yeah. So what happened if just people were people? There's a little black kid, a little Native American kid, a little white kid. Who cares? What if they just all had kind of the same journey? What if there were more courses designed for kids that wouldn't get pushed out of the way for time slots on a tee sheet? What if daily fee courses stopped jacking prices up during the season and out of season and letting kids play in the unfavorable times of the year? What happens there? What happens if every kid, like Canadian healthcare, has access to a golf club and equipment manufacturers at the youngest age? What happens if we just take our expectations away from golf? I don't know, but I think let's stop trying to grow the game. Let's steward the game now. The game's grown. It almost shrink the game, right? So half the people would say. What happens if you just, and this, people are going to look at me, especially people from different places. They're going to be like, Doug, what the hell's wrong with this guy? He just drank the Kool-Aid. No, I'm not saying, I haven't drank the Kool-Aid. But when I got into this business, not golf business, into broadcasting and podcasting, NBC labeled our podcast two black golfers beyond the fairway, two black golfers from giving you golf from a different clubhouse. They branded us as two black golfers. And guess what? Our viewership alienated half of our potential listenership because you didn't tell people this is a golf podcast where just random MFers are talking about whatever. You said, hey, this is the black stuff.
Right.
This is the black stuff. And because you tagged it that, black people in the United States make up 15% of the total population of people that I identify as African American. So I went from 100% of people being able to listen to the podcast to now being ostracized and aimed and pointed at 15% of the population. That's a dumb move by Golf Channel. And I'll say it. I don't care. So what happens if we do the same thing? Instead of calling it Growing the Game Initiative, what if we just stopped and just treated people right, opened up the tee sheet, made the game a little more accessible through how much the shit costs? And what if kids had access to equipment? Look, I just heard that McGregor launched new irons in a direct-to-consumer space. Power Built's still making irons. You got all these companies that are still actually, and there's ESPN Caddy, Michael Collins, everybody say hello. But what happens, though, if we just go back how it is? Because guess what? Finally, the game is cool. Finally, the game is mainstream. You go back, Ryan, again, I'm very long-winded. I don't mean to be. But you go back to when you were a kid, because you're older than me, golf wasn't accessible.
A lot older, Doug.
Yeah, but golf wasn't accessible. Like it was harder. Guess what? It is now. So let's stop painting this picture of like let's do X, Y, and Z and just make it fucking fair. Sorry, just make it fair. Sorry, you guys are on my. If I could hold my phone, I'm just gonna hold it now because I done cracked two screens. Just make it accessible. Like just make treating people right. All people, regardless of where they come from, the color or creed. Make it part of your mission statement, your vision statement to your companies, and just go do the right thing for everybody. Don't do the right thing for some. That's kind of my attitude.
Doug, you got a production meeting. We will let you go. You were entertaining as always. Can't wait to catch up with you down the road. Thanks, my man.
Hey, Colin said he misses you, Burr.
Yeah.
Hey.
All right, Michael.
Man,
give us
I thought I was long-winded. This one gets so passionate he can't even keep his phone on the cart. The thing falls off itself.
No, I done cracked the screen 6 times. Good thing I got a screen protector.
Hey,
but Ryan, guys, thank you for the question. I think what's interesting is when you have guys. No offense, you guys are white guys, but when you're actually talking about these type of matters, that matters because people are going to see what you're talking about and wonder, well, hell, why is this important to these guys? And then do something about it. So I appreciate you guys, taking on this challenge, this question. It's very interesting.
All right, brother.
Absolutely, Doug. Listen, we'll be in touch. Talk to you.
I'm gonna go shoot 65 real quick. I'll see y'all later.
All right.
There you go. Sounds good.
All right, please.
All right, see. All right, there we go. Nice and entertaining.
Our first R-rated podcast of the Hub of Junior Golf, Roger. In all sincerity, it was straight passion. You heard it from his voice, man. It was, to be honest, a completely different perspective he had than maybe I suspected, and that, maybe that's on me. But my takeaway more than anything is the whole let's grow the game, let's give, let's try to, make it black, white, whatever it is. If from top to bottom of golf, we made it more accessible for kids, you would have more kids. And at the end of the day, we are the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. It takes a lot of money to play golf. It's a business for everyone that that we go play their courses, that we use their equipment, that we hit their balls, etc. It's a business for everyone. If some of that money just made things easier and less expensive without putting a label on it that this is only for one sector of the community, I think he might be onto something. That might be the greatest idea of all, that would not only grow the game for minorities, African Americans, etc., but for everybody.
Yeah, no doubt, Ryan. I mean, listen, we created a lot of what our business is all about is to have accessibility, right? Wherever, whenever, to have golfing and information education on player development, right? So the Junior Golf Hub was created to help the other 99 percentile of young players and families to have access to what does it take to play the college or the next level, whether you're white, black, yellow, whatever. I don't care where you're coming from. As Doug was saying, number on your credo, right? So the reality is it was invented and created really for those 99%, not the 1%, because we know that they're going to survive anyway, right? It's the 99%. We created PDI, right? As we were talking about, PDI is a big part of this whole initiative to say, how do I get recognized for my golf skills regardless of my background, right? Regardless of background, how does a college coach or a coach recognize that I can play the game as good as anyone else because of my skills? That's part of why we created PDI. I mean, it is a big part of it. It is why, in fact, at the Golf Performance Center, while we give $100,000 scholarship away every year to a minority player, and by the way, we've had 0 take the offer. And so to his point, though, I think when you and I, we're old white guys, are going into communities that are primarily different in minority, backgrounds, it's really difficult, right? I mean, I struggle with that every single day, talking with the, players and parents from, underserved communities, and they just don't seem to think it's true, right? They think it's, oh, well, you're just doing this, for, to get publicity. No, we're doing it because we care, and we don't want to grow the game. We want to grow the people who are playing the game, right? That's our mission. That's our goal, is make that positive impact on humanity through the game of golf. So, as Doug says, it's a very passionate subject matter, right? It's not about separation. It's about inclusion and coming together as a golf community, and hopefully, again, making that impact on humanity through this. So I feel his passion. I understand where he's coming from. It is very difficult. Obviously Noda done the same thing. What you guys are doing, creating opportunities to play at the on national TV at the NB3 Championship and these qualifiers, that if you can't afford it, you're going to make sure that they get there. I mean, what you guys are doing, kudos and to doing that. But it's hard, right? Golf is a hard game. It's a hard thing to break through. It's hard for people to realize it's an ongoing process of development, not something that you just do once. It's not something you just give everybody the opportunity, because guess what? It's not everybody wants that opportunity. Not everybody can handle that opportunity. So to his point, growing the game is such a misnomer and kind of mistaken kind of credo from the PGA of America or the USGA of growing the game. Because by and large, people, curiosity, they get into the game. They don't need to grow the game. We just need to steward the game. To his point, well said. I love his passion. I look forward to connecting with him later.
Yeah, for sure. Doug's he's wonderful. Michael Collins is wonderful, and yeah, I mean it's the tip of the iceberg now. It's about like I said, it's about getting someone to take your scholarship and go to the performance center and become an incredible player, which would happen if they would go and use that scholarship. I mean, it's a lock that it would lead to much more in this game of golf. So wonderful conversation, a good conversation to have. I think Doug was adamant that the conversation, the first part is to have a podcast like this where we talk about a conversation that you don't hear every day. So we certainly thank Doug. We thank you, Roger, as always, our director, producer, Michael Nick. I'm Ryan Burr saying until next time, we'll see you real soon on the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.